on this Wednesday, the 5th of October. You're with Neil and Kitch, and there's some details that could see Apple possibly changing for a second time the charging port in their phones. To get more details upon this is Naveen Bharadwaj, the Chief Growth Officer at Spire Solution. Thank you very much for joining us on Talk 100.3.
Most welcome and good evening.
Great to have you on here. So this change, it's the European Union want to ensure that all mobile phones and tablets will only have USB Type-C chargers, which means Apple iPhone will have to change. But the iPads have had USB-C for a while, haven't they?
Well, it depends on the model of the iPads, right? As you know, there might be people that have been holding iPads since 2010, and there are those that are holding it from 2020. So different models have had different types of charging ports. What this new rule does is, and it's not just exclusive to Apple, but of course Apple is the one that's being talked about because they have their own proprietary Lightning port that everybody knows about. So Apple's going to take the biggest hit, but as far as the iPads are concerned, again, depending on the model, there have been different ports.
Yeah, Naveen,
if you think about it, it's actually great news. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, but we're just having a bit of trouble hearing you. Any chance you can maybe get off hands-free or off speakerphone to try and hear you? Because there was a bit of...
Yep. I think they will do that.
Okay.
Is this better?
No. I think it was possibly better before. But where it comes about this is the European Parliament have announced this new law. Is it possible that we could see Apple releasing phones with Type-C chargers in Europe and then different ports for the rest of the world?
I think the whole world is moving towards having these common charging ports. So the European Union is taking the lead, and if Apple decides, which I think they would not have much choice, right? If they decide to go ahead with it, then they probably would continue that elsewhere. And as we all know, Apple, and as is the case with any other electronic manufacturer, they produce these in masses. So it wouldn't make sense for them to have Type-C for a region and their own Lightning for other regions. So eventually they will all move towards Type-C.
Tell me, Naveen, why the Type-C and why not the Lightning cable? I mean, they could have changed Samsung and all the other Androids into Lightning cable and said, listen, you will have to also get into Lightning cable and not just the USB-C.
But Lightning is proprietary to Apple, so they own it. And as we all know, there's a bit of a lock-in that Apple does, right? Firstly, they say this is premium, so it's sort of a premium lifestyle. And secondly, everything that they sell, they have their own stuff, their adapters, their own cables, so on and so forth. Whereas the other manufacturers, right, be it Samsung, Huawei, or other brands that are out there, they don't have their proprietary chargers or charging ports. They've all switched over to Type-C, or they're mostly switching over to Type-C, and they have no qualms in getting their new models also adapted to Type-C. So if you were to see the percentage of impact of asking Apple to switch to Type-C versus all other manufacturers to switch to Lightning, I think
that's not going to happen. Is it possible that Apple could get around this by just throwing in another dongle in the box when they sell the phones?
I don't think they would do that, because if you see what's been happening in the last couple of years, they're removing things away from the box. So I don't think they would include another thing in the box. For example, I think now when you buy an iPhone, you get the cable, you no longer get the adapter. And Apple claims this is their move to reduce e-waste. Fantastic. Would they then throw in a dongle and add additional e-waste?
Yeah,
I
it's not
don't think so.
No, you're right.
There would come a point in time. So it's basically twisting arms here.
I think there'll be a time when they'll say that, listen, you invariably have a USB-C cable lying somewhere in your house. You can get your own cable. We are not going to supply cables. If you buy an iPhone, you just get an iPhone. Maybe 10 years down the line, they'll say, hey, you're buying an iPhone. We're not even giving you an iPhone.
I don't think we would get there, and I hope we really don't get there. But who knows what's going to happen in 10 years? You might not need physical devices. You might have others that just cast. So 10 years is too far as far as technology is concerned, because things are changing in a rapid pace.
No, that's right.
Going back to Apple, I think they don't have much of a choice, seeing that the European Union has made it a rule. So you abide or you don't sell.
Are there any benefits with USB-C over Lightning, in terms of speed or in terms of transferring data?
Yes, to both, although I haven't seen any research that says that Lightning is any slower or weaker than Type-C. I think one massive benefit is the fact that it's not just Apple iPhones, right? So the European Union is saying that any device, including your smartwatches, your earphones, your mobile phones, your tablets, your laptops, and anything that you can think of, which is sort of a smart device, they'd like them all to have the Type-C charging cable. So the goal here is, or the goal of switching to Type-C is not because it's faster, it's simply because it's more economical, it makes more sense from a energy consumption perspective. It also makes more sense from a e-waste reduction perspective.
Interesting. So going ahead, we will definitely won't have to use the lightning cables. But then for the ones who have invested in the lightning cables, which are expensive lightning cables, it's going to be a super waste invariably.
But if you think about it, the majority of people that are buying Apple products, they might be switching every 2 or 3 years. So if they're willing to invest in a new device every 2 or 3 years, I don't think it's going to be such a huge issue in them buying a Type-C. Will their lightning charger investment go in vain? Probably in a couple of years from now, but they're not going to invest as much in buying a Type-C cable. So I don't think it's going to pinch their pockets or take a hit on their lightning charger purchase.
No, that's right. In fact, Kitch, you were asking about what's the difference between lightning cable and a Type-C, or if the Type-C is any better than the lightning. It is better as far as the durability is concerned. Lightning cables, probably in 6 months' time, you'll find them getting chipped off and cutting on the edges. Type-C, we haven't seen too many of those.
Yeah, it does tend to sort of be more reliable. But today actually marks the anniversary of Steve Jobs passing away 11 years ago today. Naveen, in your thoughts, under Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, do you think the company's better or worse? Financially, they might be better, but do you think they're just as innovative as they were under Steve Jobs?
You put me on the spot. Steve Jobs is Steve Jobs, right? He's a brand on his own, and Steve Jobs his personal brand is as good as the Apple brand. Does the company have the same level of leadership? Not necessarily, because they're both different in their styles. Does the company have the same amount of innovation or better? I think definitely yes, because they've rolled out a lot of new things. One of the things that I quite distinctly remember is Steve Jobs had once said that I will not make iPhones bigger because people don't need bigger phones. But look what happened. They had to do it. So I think times are changing. Things are evolving. Steve Jobs did a great job during his time. I think Cook is doing an amazing job during his time. And I think it's unfair to be comparing them both to see who did a better job. They've both done amazingly well during their times.
A very good answer. So you still have a chance of going to the next Apple launch next year. Haven't cancelled out your invitation.
Guys, between you and me, and of course all the other listeners, I've never been to a single Apple launch. And I've seldom used Apple products. So
so you do prefer Android,
points, but I love Android any day. Anything that's proprietary, anything that's closed, anything that's conservative, it's a no-go, because the whole world is moving towards open, right? Not just for your phones and hardwares, but even from a software standpoint. Open source is the name of the game. So
but then,
why restrict consumers?
The proprietary softwares also give you that kind of security as compared to open platforms, don't they?
I think that the likes of your Androids are doing pretty good from a security standpoint as well.
Neil was quite happy with that question. He thought it sounded nerdy and techie. Look, Naveen, it is great to get your opinion on this as the Chief Growth Officer at Spire Solution. Thank you very much for joining us on Talk 100.3.
Most welcome. You all enjoy the rest of your evening.
Wonderful. We will. Thank you very much. So there are reports coming through that the European Parliament has announced a new law that will ensure all mobile phones and tablets will have that USB Type-C charger, which means that Apple iPhone and some of their iPads will have to change again, which also means for many of us it's, we've got to change our chargers. But most of us would probably have something that we need a USB-C to charge with anyway.
I mean, at my place, if you see, I have the MacBook, which has the USB-C charger. I have my power banks, which I need a USB-C charger to charge. So, yeah, I mean, you have enough of those.